Hi, my name is VanSlyke-Briggs, and I'm a professor in secondary education. And you also might know me as the first director of our faculty center here on campus at SUNY Oneonta. I'm here today to talk about online education, and in particular, I'm going to be focusing on the use of alternative assessments as a means of avoiding plagiarism and cheating in an online platform. I have been teaching online for several years. I teach for our master's degree programs, both in ed tech and literacy, and I also teach in the summer, so by default that's online for some of our undergraduate programs. When I teach online, I do prefer an asynchronous model in which I can create a module and the students go in based on their own time and flexibility within a grading window in order to complete tasks. I also prefer that for myself. As a mom and somebody who has a life outside of teaching, especially in the summer, I need some of that flexibility in order to drop my kid off for different events, or if it's sunny outside, and heaven forbid that doesn't happen often enough in Delaware County where I live. I want to take advantage of that. So using that asynchronous model gives me some of that flexibility as well, keeping in mind that I do need to keep up my presence as a professor within the windows of each grading module so that they know that I'm there. And it's not just a stagnant course that they're participating in. When we think about alternative assessments, there's a lot of different things that are beneficial in regard to learning pedagogy. One of the things that we want to keep in mind is the beautiful part about alternative assessments is they give us lots of creativity and flexibility and opportunities for students to interact with each other. It's a way for us to kind of harness multimodal representation as a means of conveying information and of knowledge. The onus of the learning is on the students. They have to be active participants in it. When we think about regular tests online, one of the things that's problematic about that is students see it as an endpoint of learning, where alternative assessments are a continuation of that learning. They're still going through the process of making meaning as they're completing each one of those tasks. They're engaging. They are highly participatory, depending on how you structure it. And they're a great way to take students to another level of communicating the knowledge that they have and practicing some of the soft skills that they don't often get time to practice, like technology integration, communication skills, things of that nature. Grouping, if you want to do groups in your example. One of the things that I keep in mind when I do alternative assessments is that I always like to use rubrics. The rubrics are beneficial for a number of reasons. One, a rubric is a way for the students to keep in mind the different components that are required for the assessment. It's like a checklist in some ways, but it's also a way for them to be extremely clear on where their points are coming from. It's helpful for me as a professor. It makes my grading a lot faster, and it's also helps me eliminate questions from students post-assessment where they critique and want to try to get every possible point. This is a way for me to point directly to an item and say, well, here's where you missed your credit. The nice thing about alternative assessments is that we can also do some essential questions within there, give kind of these big open-ended prompts for students in which they have to apply a variety of the learning that they've accumulated throughout the course instead of very finite prompts. One of the ways to do that is through mock scenarios, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. A couple of opportunities that I want to share with you, if you can see my screen back here. One of the ones that I use in my classes is VoiceThread. The nice thing about VoiceThread is that A, it's free, and I'm cheap and refuse to pay for anything, so it's free for me, free for my students. It's very user-centered, so it's easy to learn. When I create a VoiceThread, I can start with a PowerPoint, and I can do a mini lecture, and I can put my PowerPoint slides up, and then, this is an old picture, but you can write your commentary, you can video record your commentary, voice record, whatever works better for you. And then as the students progress through the slides, your lecture is there along the side. I can also embed prompts in it. And so that's what you see underneath here is I have given my slide, gave my mini lecture from the slide. I think there's like 5 or 6 slides in this mini lecture. And then underneath that, each one of my students can log on and they leave their comments. And they can reply to each other, and they can do it through a variety of means. So down here on the bottom, you'll see that they can do text, they can call in, They can do voice only and then video, which is probably one of the easier ways to go if you have a webcam. The nice thing about VoiceThread as well is you can embed videos in it. So for instance, this was a slideshow deck that I did on emergent literacy and language acquisition, and it just happened to work out that my daughter at the time was working on some of these skills that I was teaching the students about, so I was able to give them a video that they were able to critique looking for the same criteria I had just spoken about. And then progressing through the slides, they were able to put up their comments and refer back to each other. The other nice thing about VoiceThread is that it will give you a link to share, and once you have that link, all you have to do is embed it in Blackboard. So the module, for instance, in the course, what was this one, 246, I think, that I talk about emergent literacy, it'll be a whole module section. I drop in the link for this, the students can click on it, they make their own user login, takes 2 seconds, and then they can start using it. I also like to scaffold things like these, so I'll start with like a welcome one, you know, the first week of class, just so they can get used to the platform in a low stakes environment. And then I'll do a couple like this, which would replace a Blackboard discussion and a lecture. And then I can use those little formative assessments to build up to a summative one, in which the students create their own voice threads, and then it's participatory and extends learning because now their peers have to get engaged with that as well. So I can give a variety of topics, for instance, and do it as a jigsaw method, and each student replies through a different aspect of the course as a prompt, or I can give them all the same prompt. Lots of different ways that you can play with this in the class. Another one is Flipgrid, which I'm trying out for the first time this summer, so wish me luck on that one. And what I'm going to be doing with Flipgrid is I totally stole this idea from my daughter, who's now going into 9th grade. She's the same child you saw in that earlier picture where she was about 3 years old, so she's been appearing in my courses for a long time. Flipgrid, you can give a prompt, you can create a page for the class, and then a series of prompts if you want to do it that way as well. So if I scroll down here, you'll see one of the first prompts. You don't want to see that. Is just an introduction one. So this is the first one to get them used to it. They have a prompt here, and then they'll scroll down and they click this little symbol and a window pops up asking them to record their response, which is short. It's only about 1.5 minutes that they have to respond. So they have to be very precise and use economy of language as they are replying. Our students have gotten very good at yammering on and saying a whole lot without a whole lot of meat to their topics. So this asks them to really synthesize the points and be precise in their language. And then the idea of it being a grid is that they'll be able to see all of their peers' responses here as a series of quick responses, and they can reply to each other as well in here. So there's a lot of flexibility. And again, I'm going to be using this as this is the introduction one, then I'll have a formative one that's going to replace a lecture and online discussion, and then I have one that's going to be a summative assessment. So when we're thinking about alternative assessments in the classroom, and let's say you don't want to get into a whole lot of technology like the examples I was just sharing, there are other more traditional alternative assessments that you can do, such as creating a paper, but then doing a mock scenario to go along with it, so that it has a creative element to it. It's very difficult to plagiarize something like that, and it'll also give them more traditional writing experience. If you're willing to get into video, one of the examples that I have is that I'm going to be doing with my graduate ed tech course. Throughout the length of the course, they learn about different technologies to apply for literacy in the classroom and how it matches standards, and then the research and philosophy behind each one of those. And the final that I'm going to be putting in place is this, for lack of a better phrase, kind of like a Shark Tank style video. They have 5 minutes. They have to create a video in which they are giving a mock presentation to their local school board, trying to ask for funding to create a new technology application for the district as the ed tech specialist for the district. And of course, when they get into that, they have to give a background of the technology, why it's beneficial for literacy needs. They have to talk about the links to standards. They're using the content from the class to argue the philosophical benefits of it. So it has all of those layers to it. I'm going to have them post their videos in Blackboard, They'll be able to see each other's videos, so there's that layer of dialogic review as they respond to each other and give some pointers to what they would have done differently or what they liked about it or how it's going to match up with the work that they themselves have done. Portfolios, that's another way that you do something like that. Applied learning, of course, which if you know me, you know that I'm a little bit obsessed with applied learning. Applied learning has a lot of influence in alternative assessments. There's lots of layers that you can connect those two things together as well. So I know that was a lot very quickly that I rolled out there. If you would like to talk more about any one of those, I'm happy to talk with you. Drop me an email or we can set up a Teams meeting to chat. I'm going to be in my position for Faculty Center Director until the end of June, but I'm happy to talk after that as well. So good luck!